And so this will protect you from the due on sale clause.
Okay, so now that she finally gets to know that we're going to give her our trust, we're gonna get this deal closed because I just want out of this pain point that I'm dealing with all the time. That's only the front end of this deal. That's just to acquire the deal, right? So what comes next in that whole cycle,
right?
And like our pipeline, right?
Yeah. So get it under contract, and then the next step for me is analyzing the deal. Do I want to be the buyer, or do I want to assign this to another buyer? And so at this point in time, we had just bought 2 rentals, and we were going through some stuff with those 2 rentals, which is another crazy story we could talk about sometime. But so we're like, we're not ready right this second to take something on, but it was a really good deal. I knew it was a good deal. And so I do have a list of buyers that buy creatively, buy subject to and seller finance. And so, if I want to, I can send it out to that list. But I also knew that you would possibly be looking for deals. You hadn't bought your first one yet. So I thought, well, this might be a great one for them to start on. It's in a good area and it's a super low entry fee. So I just called you up and said, hey, I got this deal. Yep. What do you think about it? I'm going to send it over. I'm going to offer it to you first. And, if you want it, then you can move forward. Otherwise, I'll send it out to my other buyers.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. So I sent it over, and it's a whole nother process because you've never bought a deal before. Yep. And so once you looked at it and said, okay, I want to move forward, then we got to go through a whole nother process of like, how do we transfer the deed of this property over, not to trigger any sort of, due on sale clause with the bank.
Yeah, and that's a whole process for sure. We'll get into that. But before we go there, let's just unpack what was just there.
Okay.
So when I hear that and you guys want to like buy a deal or be a buyer, there's so much to be ready for, right? That's all I was listening to while you were just talking. Is like, I have a list of buyers, people who are used to buying subject to creative deals, right? We call them cash deals. If you're going to be any of those types of buyers, you have to be ready, right? You have to have your source of money in place. You have to understand the mechanics of those creative deals, right?
Yes.
So can you speak to, like, in this instance, being ready as a creative buyer? Like, what does that look like? What should people have in place to buy creative deals?
Yeah, so I think that can actually be an issue because the low entry fee, you think, oh, I'm going to buy this house. And in my experience, you will not cash flow on a property for the most part, not all the time, for the first year while you're getting stabilized. And so you really need to know, first of all, the market. There's several different exit strategies. I mean, you could do a long-term rental. You could do a short-term rental. You can do a pad split because Jacksonville is a really good market for pad split. You could do sober living. I could go on and on and on, right? So, as a buyer, you want to be able to have an exit strategy. So when you're looking at these properties, you can build your numbers in as to, okay, how am I going to maximize this property to make the most money? And you have to know how to do that, or you're going to be out of pocket and you're going to be in some trouble too. And being that you want to have some responsibility over the fact that you are paying someone else's mortgage now. It is not under your name. It is under someone else's name. So you want to have all your ducks in a row as to like what your exit strategy is, how much money you're going to need up front, projections on how much you're going to make. I do not like to sell these types of deals to anyone that, I don't know and trust. You got to have a little bit of credibility and a little bit of rapport, maybe have even bought a couple of them before.
I think that's super important too, because I'm just on the front end of that, like so I do wholesale, and what I focus on is that whole acquisition part we just talked about. But because I talk to people all the time, and because we acquire the deals and then go and sell them, I get to speak with buyers and I get to see who really has their things in order, just like you're saying, right? And I like to vet them as well. Like, no, you're not ready to become a buyer just yet. And sometimes there's a full educational process that goes through educating your buyers and saying, here's what you would need to have if you'd like to start buying deals from me as a wholesaler or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And I think that experience for me is what made me ready to receive that type of deal, because I understood the mechanics after going through so many and underwriting so many deals. And it was only really then until I can say, I think I'm ready. You know, I have the network to get lenders from if I needed lenders. I have some backup cash if I need to pay for anything. I can make payments. I can be a buyer. Cool, let's try it out. And why not do it with a friend who can walk me through that process, like exactly what you said. So let's kind of get into that process.
Yeah.
This is huge, and you guys probably want to take out your notebooks for this one, because subject to can be done in multiple ways.
Yes.
Right? And we chose to go the route of buying in a trust.
Right. So just like the nuts and bolts of a subject to, in case, you know, anybody on here watching isn't super familiar with it, it's, you know, you're buying a property subject to the mortgage, which means you're buying it with the mortgage still attached to the property. A mortgage is a lien, and this is how I explained it to her. It's a lien. You're allowed to buy a house with a lien on it. Now, the mortgage still has to be paid. The mortgage still stays in the name of the seller. This is not what we call an assumption. An assumption is when the loan actually changes names. This is a subject to, so the loan stays in the name of the seller. The biggest issue is there's nothing illegal about it. In fact, they have written laws that allow for it to help people like this.
That's right.
They want you to be able to do this, but the banks, they do still have to protect themselves. It makes sense, you know. As a bank, you know, I'm obviously going to write something into my mortgages that say, if you transfer the deed, we can accelerate the loan. That's called the due on sale clause. It's very, very rare, but it's very real and very scary. You want to be able to have things in place. So when you transfer the deed, I mean, you can transfer it into any name that you like. Here in the state of Florida, and there's a couple other states with it too, we have land trusts. And land trusts are really cool because they create anonymity. They're a good way to transfer assets to beneficiaries, to heirs. And actually inside of the mortgages, you're allowed to transfer your deed into a trust. So me as a homeowner, I can transfer my deed for this house into a trust, and it would not trigger an accelerated loan, right? Not trigger the due on sale. So because we have these land trusts in Florida, it's really cool. There's all kinds of really cool things that you can do. So I suggest to my buyers, you know, what we're going to do here is we are going to have the seller transfer the deed into a land trust. And you can name the land trust whatever you like. We named it the address in this instance, you know, 000 Main Street, land trust. And what's cool about the land trust is it creates anonymity. So when you use an attorney to create the land trust, for the most part, the attorney is going to be the trustee. So they're the ones that are going to be signing all the paperwork, but who owns the land trust is the beneficiary. So that's the person who owns the property, they own the land trust, and they make all the decisions, and they tell the trustee what to do. The trustee can't do anything without the permission of the beneficiary.
That's right.
So if you have the seller deed the property into the land trust, the seller then becomes the beneficiary. Now this is a public document. This is what you're going to see on the deed. This is what's recorded. So all the bank is going to see is they were deeded into a land trust. You have your attorney as the trustee and the seller as the beneficiary. So at this point, the seller still owns the property, right? They're still the owner of the land trust. What's super cool about a land trust is that you can actually sell your beneficial interest as many times as you want. And so at closing, the seller is actually selling their beneficial interest to the end buyer, in this instance you, right? Your LLC. And that is a private document that no one ever sees. And now you can go and sell that beneficial interest to someone else, and they in turn can sell it to someone else. I mean, you can do it as many times as you want. And so this will protect you from the due on sale clause, as well as give you several layers of anonymity. No one knows who owns that property, because everything is private from there on out. You don't have to transfer deed again.
Yeah, and I think it's important that people know that this whole process was proctored by attorneys. So this is not something that we just go and make up these things here, make this document for me, make this document for me, right? We go through attorneys, we understand what needs to be, what is law, and we need to follow that as well. So these are not things we get away with, right? This is stuff that is written in law for a specific purpose, and that purpose also being anonymity, right? Families are allowed to have that here in America. That's one of our freedoms, right? So like being able to transfer property in these different ways is a solution to the problems that these sellers have.
Yeah.
And so this is what we did here, right? So very cool. Hope everybody got notes on that. But once it's acquired, like I collected keys literally today, so I was super stoked about that. But we're not even done yet, right? There's other things I got to take over, the payments and set all those things up. And so that's going to be a really cool part for me.
Well, and also to note, many people, if you've done subject to before, or if you want to acquire properties this way, a big issue is the insurance. And so, the transferring of the insurance is one of the number one ways to trigger a due on sale. So if you have insurance under your name and you try to replace it, then the bank's going to see that and they're going to send you a letter. Like, the name needs to be under the mortgagee name, which you don't want your insurance to be under the name of the seller. Because if you have to make a claim, you got to call the seller and hope that they're still around.
Yeah.
So that's what's so great about transferring it into the land trust as well, because the insurance can be vested in the name of the land trust. In fact, it has to be. They want it to be. And so now you own this land trust because you've been sold the beneficial interest. You can go and buy the insurance and it's under the name of the land trust, and you switch it out, it's no problem. So it just totally clears up the issue with insurance as well. Now, I know they don't have land trusts in every state, so that would be something that you would have to look up. And again, like Jamey said, we're vesting this through title companies and we're using land trust attorneys. I mean, all we're doing is receiving paperwork and reviewing it and making sure
exactly.
they're doing all the hard work. We're just telling them what we want done and they get it done for us.
I think that's, that next level of investor too that I'm learning about and learning to become is a lot of people think like when you want to be an investor, I'm going to make money, like I want this property and this will be mine and that will be mine. They have this thought like I need to own everything. When I start finding out by talking to people like yourself who are doing it actively, people like our mentor Pace Morby, like the way he does things, it's about being able to control that asset, not necessarily own it. I need the control, that's it. And you can move things around because you have that control, and it transfers like that thought process of ownership to just having the right amount of control over those assets. That was a huge thing for me in learning about the trust anyway. Yeah. So that was the main learning points for me. But I also want to talk about like what everybody wants to hear probably is the money that was made on this type of deal for sure. So let's go through first of all how you got paid on the deal and the seller.
And also I think it's important to know, how do you get paid on a subject to deal when you are assigning it? For me, when I'm assigning a subject to deal, I look at how much cash flow there's going to be and what the entry fee is. You want your entry fee to be around 10% of what we call ARV, which would be after retail value. So the value of the property, all beautiful and fixed up, 10% of whatever that is. So that would include the entry fee, whatever needs to be done inside the property, your assignment fee, and your closing costs. So after kind of looking at all of that, I knew that I could probably squeeze in an $8,000 assignment fee. So that is what I got for selling you the deal. Pretty sweet. And then you were able to go and raise the money from one of your lenders, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's the awesome thing about it. Like, we talk about network all the time. You know, we run meetups here in Jacksonville. We meet new people. People get word of what we're doing or what you're doing as an investor, and they want to participate, right? That's the main thing. And when you brought that to me, like I said, I finally understood how to buy the deal. I understood that it was a deal. Like you said, you calculate it for cash flow. And so I was able to see those numbers for myself as well. And when I buy it, I think of what can I do with it, right? Like long-term rental, I can wrap it, and we can go through some of those things later. But yeah, I make money from cash flow. I also make money if I sell it to somebody else and they pay a down payment. I brought in a private money lender, and they wanted to make money. So having that opportunity, that private money lender lended money to me for that entry fee, and they're going to get paid part of that cash flow as well. So we have 3 people getting paid, actually 4, because I have a partner who's in the deal as well. So there's 4 people getting paid on this deal.
I mean, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's like the seller got exactly what they needed.
Yep.
You know, I got my assignment fee. I'm making money so I can go find more deals. And you're getting a new property that you can make an infinite amount on. I mean, it's pretty sick.
Yeah, pretty sweet. So this is the reality of being able to do real estate with your friends, with partners, with a network. So speaking of network, you're on social media.
Yes.
And you're looking to raise private money for these types of reasons, right?
Yep.
So let's kind of go over where people can find you. What is your Instagram?
So my Instagram handle is April N Juliano with the J, Juliano. So go find me for more tips and tricks. If you want to be a buyer, if you want to be a lender, or if you have a deal that you need help with, send me a message. I'd be more than happy to help.
Absolutely. And it's Jamey with a Y. So it's Jamey with a Y. You'll find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so find us on social media. Make sure that you guys are constantly in contact on there, because we look through comments, we look through DMs. We are constantly raising money and working on projects, whether it be together or separately in our businesses. But everybody, there's so much for people to have. So keep an abundance mindset, and we'll see you guys next time.